Hello, and welcome to Eyes of Faith with Michael Roy. Thanks for tuning into the channel today. Today is Friday, June 28th. Man, Friday, June. June is almost gone. June is almost gone. Friday, June 28th. 2 more days, and we'll be into July. It's almost time to celebrate the 4th of July, Independence Day. Woo, woo, woo. Guess what? Because I'm going to be on vacation and I'm going to be really maxing out and enjoying myself. How about you? All right. So, again, thank you for tuning into the channel. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to Eyes of Faith with Michael Roy, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If you have not subscribed to Eyes of Faith with Michael Roy, hit that subscribe button because by now you know what we're about. We're about talking about church, talking about politics, talking about sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever topic we believe is going to help bring you and I insight in the world in which we live. We're going to broach that topic. We're going to bring wisdom. We're going to bring facts. We're going to bring truth. We're going to give you an opportunity to make wise judgments because we bring you what you need. So today, what am I on about today? Well, let me tell you something about today's particular video. There's a couple of guys I listen to, Glenn Lowry and John McWhorter. And let me tell you who they are. Glenn Lowry is a professor of economics at Brown University. He's a tenured professor. I believe he's kind of on the way to being retired. He's 75 years old. He just wrote a memoir titled Late Admissions of a Black Conservative, you know, his ups and downs in his life. Uh, his the podcast, the channel is basically has Glenn's title. It's called what is it? I'm running a blank right now. But anyway, it's the Glenn Show. Look, it's the Glenn Show, and his speaking partner is John McWhorter. John McWhorter is a professor of linguistics at Columbia University. So now you notice both these guys are at Ivy League schools, posh Ivy League schools. These schools that are bashing Israel. These schools where the students are being very anti-Semitic. But anyway, that's nothing to do with them specifically, and they do speak out on those issues. So the Glenn Show primarily is a show where Glenn, again, who's a professor of economics at Brown, and John, who's a linguistics professor at Columbia, they talk about social issues, political issues, things that are in the news and the headlines, and they give their particular bent on it. Of course, these guys are heavyweight intellectuals, and they speak in those terms and they move in those circles. And I have a intellectual bent, and so I get a lot out of listening to them and getting their take on things. Uh, Glenn is 15 years younger than Thomas Sowell, but he has a little wisdom. He has some wisdom that can be appropriated to you and I. So I want to take a minute though I want to introduce them, but the reason I'm doing a video is about Trump derangement syndrome. I think, unfortunately, John, the younger of the two, John is, I think, just turned 57. He's the younger of the two, and he's a dyed in the wool liberal through and through, while Glenn, the elder, is uh, more of a conservative, probably more libertarian than conservative. He says in the 80s he was a full blown conservative, but he switched back and forwards over a few years, but now he's back pretty much in the conservative fold. The reason I'm playing this video is to really show people what Trump derangement syndrome looks like. It's not something fictitious. It's not something people just say. I mean, this thing is real. Trump derangement syndrome is real, and you know, I've listened to these guys, and sometimes they line up on the same on a topic, but many times they're polar opposites because, again, John is a tote the book, by the book, tote the water liberal. But again, so he does have some good points on different things. But I'm going to let you watch a little of this video, and I want you to see some of what I'm talking about. Then we're going to discuss it because it's important for people to know that when we say that someone has Trump derangement syndrome, they kind of think we're just joking or we're being facetious. But no, it's real. So let's go ahead and go to the video and let you hear some of this.
Run by this hideous person that you speak of, this dangerous person, for 4 years, and the ship didn't crash, and saying we did okay. Jen, you must be celebrating over there. Donald J. Trump has been convicted of 34 counts of felonious behavior in a New York City courtroom by a jury of his peers. He's now a felon, a convicted felon awaiting sentencing.
They love that.
Have you broken out the champagne?
Felon.
No, because it won't make enough of a difference. It makes him a hero to his fans. And there are a certain number of people who feel that if if an appeal can't happen or if an appeal doesn't work, which it won't, then they can't imagine pulling the lever for a convicted felon. But it's not.
Oh, you're not so sure that you're sure he's going to lose Trump on appeal?
I read that an appeal would be highly unlikely to go through just on the formal grounds. There's just nothing to appeal, and so if there isn't, how many people would that turn?
That's some. How in the world? How do you know? It's like the little circles John runs in. They're all liberal, and they say, "Oh, there's no way he can win. This is a locked up case. No, an appeal wouldn't help him at all. He would lose on appeal." It's just what? Where you get that? I'm like, poor Glenn's like, dude, where do you get that from?
And from what I can see, not enough to change the situation that we're in. I only got a tiny bit of gratification because my sense of popping out the champagne would be less about whether it would make a difference with the election, but if it brought him down a little bit. And that's kind of puerile, but I didn't really get that either because, frankly, he'll just see it as injustice and persecution against him. He did seem to be shocked at first, and I can barely square that with my sense of him. It seems like it actually hurt him that this jury, and he knows it's a jury from New York City, which doesn't like him, that this jury actually did convict him and so completely, but only for a second. And then he was back to his old self. Do you find it momentous news? I found it dramatic. I followed the trial closely. I found it interesting, but...
I find it momentous, but not in the same spirit of that you just voiced. I find it momentous in that it exemplifies a turn in American political and legal culture that I think is ominous. It is a clearly politically motivated abuse or opportunistic exploitation of the legal framework in order to accomplish their political goal, which is preventing this guy from being elected president.
I mean, that's the whole reason. The whole reason these cases were brought is because they can't beat Donald Trump any other way. And Glenn knows that. And obviously this guy, John, is perplexed. Glenn understands. Of course, Glenn is 75. He's in economics. He's, in the upper echelon of academia. He understands and knows. He's seen a lot of stuff in the early, 70s and 80s. He knows what's going on. Obviously, John doesn't.
Of the United States, and I think that that's debasing the currency. It's poisoning the well. It's injurious to the culture of political competition in the country, and this is not the last we're going to hear of it. Not just in this election cycle, a precedent has been established, and I have a bad feeling about a foreboding about what that entails. Plus, as you say, I think the net effect, he's wasted hundreds of millions of dollars in the aftermath of the conviction. Not a single person who was going to vote for Trump before that, or very few who would have voted for Trump before our going to be persuaded by the label felon. The anchors at the networks are telling their Republicans who come on, can you still support him now that he's a convicted felon? Which the answer is, of course I can, because I think the conviction was bullshit. I mean, if he had done 34 assaults or carjackings or...
Man, that's I mean, of course. It's like, for some reason, the Democrats thought if we could just get him convicted, everybody would just turn away from him. How asinine is that? I mean, these people with these titles and degrees and positions, their brains are so small. They actually think because they can go rig the court, they was going to make the people turn away from Trump. And so they're so caught up in, they're so power hungry, they're so consumed with moving Trump out of the way that they think just by rigging a system that we would turn on him. This is stupid. It was dumb.
Embezzlements or whatever, that would be one thing, but this is bullshit, is what they're going to say to themselves, rightly, in my humble opinion. So this is not the last we would have heard of this kind of thing, and lawfare is not a healthy development, in my opinion.
Glenn, I know what you mean, and I had a feeling you would feel that way about it.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean.
So now get ready, because this is what I'm talking about. So if you want to know what Trump derangement syndrome looks like, just listen to this guy. He is the classic liberal. He's that dyed in the wool, blue, yellow back liberal, tote the water, just say whatever they want you to say without any facts, whether it's truth behind it or not. He's going to tote the water. He's going to say what they want him to say, period.
About the precedent. And we can't just think about this now. What's the new pattern going to be? But to be honest, and I think you'll find this familiar, I think Trump is such a unique phenomenon that a little bit of vigilante justice or bending the proprieties, I understand it because he's truly a hideous, monstrous prospect. As
run by this is ominous. It is clearly politically motivated, injurious to the culture. Details.
Hold on for a second.
Who would have voted for Trump? Who would have voted for Trump? Bullshit. I mean, if he...
Glenn, I know what you mean, and I had a feeling you would feel that way about it.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean about the precedent. And we can't just think about this now. What's the new pattern going to be? But to be honest, and I think you'll find this familiar, I think Trump is such a unique phenomenon that a little bit of vigilante justice or bending the proprieties, I understand it because he's truly a hideous.
So now this guy is actually advocating breaking the law because they don't like Trump. So what he's already told you, see, they all know what's happening. They, in their minds, this is what Trump derangement syndrome is. He has so broken them that now they are rationalizing that he is so bad that it's okay to break all the laws just to stop him. Forget all the years of legal ease and the judicial system and how everyone has to have their due day in court and justice is blind. Forget all that. He just told you, the Democrats, the people he run with, he's in, the Ivy League settings, and he runs with those type people. And when he goes to little parties in New York, because he lives in New York, when they go to those parties, these are the things that they talk about. These are things they say. They say that he's so evil. He's such a liar that it's okay to break the law just to get rid of him. Wow. I say, wow.
Monstrous prospect as somebody who should be running this country for a second time.
Really?
And presumably thinking of himself as not being responsible for being reelected again, although he's made his noises about trying for a third term. This is
what's so monstrous about him, John? He was president for 4 years. We survived. Where's the monstrosity?
Yeah, John. Yeah, John. I mean, what's the monstrosity? What are you seeing, John? Glenn's like, man, what the hell are you talking about? I'm just, excuse my language, but Glenn, like, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah, I'm like, yeah. Don't you get to when you're talking to some of your friends about Trump and they're trying to tell you how they hate Trump and Trump is so evil, Trump is so wicked, he's such a lie, he's such a womanizer. When they use all the same talking points, and these are your friends, you're thinking the same thing. Like, what, man? What are you talking about? Where are you getting at? Where you get this stuff from? I feel like when I talk to some of my friends, one of my buddies I talk to, he's parroting the same stuff John is parroting. It's like they make it up and then they really act like they believe it, because I guess some of them do believe it. But it's fraudulent, it's fictitious, it's a lie.
I'm not sure I get it.
I think everybody knows what I was going to say. Bragg, I agree that this is politically motivated. It's clear. There's so many other people who have done things like what Trump did in this case, where nobody bats an eye and have a case. Yeah, it's clear that Bragg wanted to get him. And when Bragg gives an interview about it in 30 years with white hair, some interviewer is going to say, most people say it was politically motivated. Was it? How do you feel? And he's going to say, of course it was, and I think I did the right thing, and I'm going to agree with him.
See?
What was so monstrous about Trump? I mean, need we listen to them? He's an immoral person with no respect for or interest in other people, and often an outright scorn for other people explicitly expressed, which he tries to reflect in actual policies. He was reined in somewhat, but the fact that all these things were even floated, his behavior with overseas leaders, his cult-like devotion, not only to Putin, but the idea that he and Jong-un fell in love, etc., where it's all about his narcissism, even when it's about international geopolitics, is pathetic, it's embarrassing, and it's dangerous. And just in general, to have a president who's incapable of paying attention to detail or policy, where everything is really just all about him, and to an extent beyond that of any president I can think of in history. All of them, of course, have to be about themselves, but Trump is a gorilla. I think to have the country run by somebody who can't pay attention and surrounds himself with sycophants, it's not a good situation.
The country was run by this hideous person that you speak of.
I mean, man, it's just hard for me to even bear people like John. I'll be honest with you, I don't know how Glenn to even talk to this guy on a regular basis like that, especially when I get issues like this, because he's just making up stuff. I mean, see, obviously they sit at the table or sit around and talk, about Trump and add these different things that they say he does, his personality, his character, which they don't like. They don't like he's blunt. They don't like that he's brash. They don't like that he does what he says he's going to do. They don't even understand the stuff they've been fed by the White House. They've been fed that because they know Trump has the goods on Joe Biden and everybody else, and they all against him. And so these guys, John, some of these guys, they're just pawns. They didn't even know they're just pawns. They're parroting what the left wants them to parrot so they could vilify Trump to prevent him from being elected. Like, dude, this don't make any sense. This guy built an empire. This guy has been loved, celebrated for years until he came out as a conservative, until he started doing conservative things. Prior to Donald Trump running for president, he was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, I don't know how many times. He was in the circles of all the black stars, all the black musicians, all the black rappers. He was on The Apprentice. Everybody loved him. He won Emmys for it. John, what are you talking about? You see how people switch on you? These people are deranged. Their minds have popped because you're parroting. Now, you're parroting things that you have no way of making it true. And the thing is, you know it isn't true. I'm gonna say this. Other than Trump, if you tune into the Glenn show and listen to John and Glenn talk, I mean, John is bright. He's articulate. He does have some savvy on many issues. But man, when it comes to Trump, this dude is off his rocker. I'm telling you, it's like his brain just, when you start talking about Trump, his brain just started oozing out his head. He's so obsessed with getting rid of Trump, and Trump is evil, Trump is wicked. They are all deranged. I just had to show this video which substantiates this fact. I mean, I'm gonna play a little bit more and we're gonna close it down. But
this dangerous person for 4 years, and the ship didn't crash and sink. We did okay, frankly. I mean, the pandemic came along. I don't think you're going to blame that on Trump, are you? I thought the economy was doing kind of okay. The world didn't suddenly become on fire with war all over the place because Trump is president.
Right.
I mean, sure, of course you can criticize him about his policies, but I don't see this hideousness. I see a guy who's...
I'm going to go and finish right here and just say that I only wanted to show this video just for many of you who are like me, who are like-minded like me. When you're talking to your friends, relatives, and co-workers who are liberals, whether it be, far left liberals, moderate liberals, whatever, they all have this same block. So don't waste a whole lot of time trying to convince them anything about Trump, because, man, when it comes to Trump, they are deranged, and the Jedi mind trick has been played on them by the leadership of the Democratic Party. So when it comes to talking about Trump, they are not going to be fair. They're not going to listen to facts. They don't want to listen to reason. They don't want to hear about his record. They don't want to talk about all the good things he's done. There are folks on he told you he's a monster. He's evil. He's wicked. How can we vote for him? How could you vote for him, Glenn? Don't waste your time. Just don't. Wait. I'm saying just don't. Just don't waste your time. Just know that's what Trump derangement syndrome looks like. John McWhorter in that little segment there. And some of our relatives, some of our friends, some of our co-workers, they are deranged as well. Hey, if you like this video, give me a thumb up, like, subscribe, and share. Like, subscribe, and share. Hey, God bless you and keep you. Until next time, have a nice weekend.